the richest island on Earth. Then it lost everything. Imagine a place in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a tiny island with a population smaller than many cities around the world. A place that seemed to have discovered a secret formula for unlimited wealth. For a moment in history, this island became one of the richest places on Earth. Its citizens had access to luxury cars, overseas vacations, and government benefits that were almost impossible to imagine. Money was everywhere. The future looked guaranteed. But behind this incredible success story was a hidden danger. The wealth that created a paradise was also slowly destroying it. And when the source of that wealth disappeared, an entire nation was forced to face a question that every company, investor, and country should understand. What happens when prosperity depends on only one thing? This is the extraordinary true story of Nauru, the island that became unbelievably rich, and then lost almost everything. In the Central Pacific lies Nauru, one of the smallest countries on Earth. For centuries, its people lived a traditional island life, deeply connected to their land and ocean. But beneath the surface was a resource that would transform its destiny: phosphate. In the early 20th century, mining companies discovered Nauru held some of the highest quality deposits in the world. Suddenly, this tiny island became the center of global attention. In 1906, commercial phosphate mining began on Nauru. The industry grew rapidly because phosphate was extremely important for modern agriculture. Farmers around the world needed fertilizer to increase food production, and Nauru had one of the most valuable sources available. For decades, foreign companies extracted enormous amounts of phosphate from the island, but the people of Nauru did not initially control their own wealth. The island went through different periods of foreign administration, including German, British, Australian, and other forms of control. The phosphate was valuable, but the profits largely flowed away from the island. Then came a turning point. In 1968, Nauru gained independence. For the first time, the people of Nauru had control over their own nation and their own natural resources. And this is when the island entered the most extraordinary chapter of its history. The phosphate beneath the ground was about to transform Nauru into a country unlike any other. After independence, Nauru took control of its phosphate mining. For the first time, the wealth flowed directly to the nation, sparking an extraordinary economic boom. During the 1970s and 80s, Nauru became one of the richest countries per person in the world. Citizens enjoyed free healthcare, education, and a lifestyle rare even among wealthy nations. It felt like a permanent source of wealth. But the money came from a single resource, and that resource was disappearing. During the years of prosperity, Nauru made decisions that would later become some of the most controversial in its history. With enormous amounts of money available, the government began investing abroad. The idea seemed logical. If phosphate reserves would eventually decline, investments could create a new source of income for future generations. Nauru purchased properties and made investments in different parts of the world. One of its most ambitious projects was the development of a major building in Melbourne, Australia, known as Nauru House. Completed in the 1970s, it became a symbol of the island's incredible wealth. At one point, Nauru House was considered one of the most valuable buildings owned by a foreign government in Australia. To many observers, it represented a powerful message. A tiny Pacific island had become a global investor. But behind the impressive achievements, warning signs were already appearing. The phosphate industry was not endless. Every year, more land was mined. Every year, more of the island's interior was removed. And slowly, the foundation of Nauru's wealth was being exhausted. For a while, the numbers continued to look impressive. The country continued earning money from phosphate exports. The citizens continued enjoying a lifestyle built on natural resource wealth. But economists and observers began asking an important question. What would happen when the phosphate ran out? Unlike countries with diverse economies, Nauru depended almost entirely on one industry. There were no major manufacturing sectors. There was limited agriculture. There was little space for economic expansion. The island's prosperity depended on one thing: the ground beneath its feet. And that was a dangerous position for any nation, because every mine has an ending. And for Nauru, that ending was approaching faster than many expected. By the late 20th century, the reality facing Nauru could no longer be ignored. The phosphate that had created decades of prosperity was becoming harder to extract. The easiest and most valuable deposits had already been removed. What remained was a much more difficult challenge. The island had gained enormous wealth from mining, but mining had also transformed its landscape. Large parts of the interior of Nauru had been completely stripped away. The green forests that once covered the island were replaced by a strange landscape of limestone pillars and abandoned mining areas. A significant portion of the island became almost impossible to use for traditional agriculture or development. The same resource that had made Nauru wealthy had also damaged the land that supported its people. And now the country faced a difficult reality: the money was decreasing. The resource was disappearing. And there was no clear replacement. As phosphate production declined, Nauru began searching for new ways to survive. The country still had financial assets from its years of prosperity, but managing those assets became increasingly difficult. Some investments failed. Some projects produced disappointing results. One of the most famous examples was the attempt to enter the entertainment industry. In the 1990s, Nauru invested money into a musical project called Leonardo the Musical, A Portrait of Love. The production was created in London and was inspired by the life of Leonardo da Vinci. The project was expected to become a major success, but instead, it became a financial disaster. The show closed after only a short run, costing Nauru millions of dollars. For a country that had once been almost unbelievably wealthy, this was a painful reminder. Money could disappear quickly when investments were poorly managed. The decline continued. By the early 2000s, Nauru was facing a severe financial crisis. The country had lost much of its previous income. Government finances became increasingly unstable. Assets were sold to cover debts. Even Nauru House, the famous symbol of the island's golden era, was eventually sold in 2004. The building that once represented unlimited wealth had become a symbol of a changing reality. The world had watched a nation rise from almost nowhere, and now it was watching that same nation struggle to survive. But the economic crisis was only part of the story. Nauru was also facing a social and environmental challenge. Years of mining had left the center of the island heavily damaged. The land that remained available for housing and agriculture was limited. The population had to adapt to a completely different future. The lifestyle that had existed during the phosphate boom was no longer sustainable. The luxury cars, imported goods, and generous government benefits of the past were becoming memories of another era. A generation that had grown up during prosperity now had to experience a very different reality. The story of Nauru reveals one of the greatest risks in economics. A resource can create wealth, but wealth without planning can disappear. Natural resources can build powerful economies, but without diversification, investment discipline, and long-term vision, the same resource can become a weakness. And Nauru was about to experience one of the most dramatic economic transformations in modern history. A country that once had more money than it knew what to do with was now searching for a way forward. With its phosphate fortune gone, Nauru searched for a new future. In the 1990s, it became an offshore banking hub, registering thousands of companies. But this attracted international pressure over money laundering concerns. Forced to reform its financial system, the country had to adapt once again. Another major source of income came from an unexpected partnership. In exchange for financial assistance, Nauru allowed Australia to establish a regional processing centre for asylum seekers on the island. The arrangement became one of the most controversial periods in Nauru's modern history. Supporters argued that the agreement provided important financial support for the struggling nation. Critics around the world raised concerns about the conditions and humanitarian consequences. Regardless of the debate, the agreement demonstrated the difficult choices that small countries sometimes face when searching for economic survival. Today, Nauru remains a sovereign nation. The island is no longer one of the richest places on Earth, but its story continues to attract global attention because it represents something much bigger than one small country. It represents a lesson about wealth, a lesson about resources, and a lesson about the future. The rise and fall of Nauru is not simply a story about a mining industry, it is a story about human decisions. The phosphate beneath the island was a gift. It created schools, infrastructure, healthcare, and a level of prosperity that few small nations ever experienced. But wealth itself is not enough. The difficult question is what happens after the wealth arrives. Countries, companies, and individuals all face the same challenge. How do you transform temporary success into lasting prosperity? Nauru had something many nations dream of finding, a resource worth billions of dollars. But resources have limits. Markets change, opportunities disappear, and without preparation, even enormous wealth can vanish. The abandoned mining fields in the center of Nauru stand today as a powerful reminder. They are the remains of an extraordinary chapter in history, a place where a tiny island became one of the richest nations on Earth, before discovering that the greatest challenge was not finding wealth, but protecting it. Nauru's story is a warning written across the Pacific Ocean, because the rise of an empire can happen quickly, but maintaining that empire requires something far more valuable than money. It requires vision, planning, and the wisdom to prepare for the day when the easy wealth is gone. This was the story of Nauru, the richest island on Earth, and the nation that lost almost everything.